My name's Jenine Craston. I'm Head of ESG for Knight Frank Australia. The mandatory sustainability reporting that's coming our way in FY 2024-2025 is a once-in-a-generation change that will require transformational change across the industry in how we gather and report information. It will require us to rethink the old hierarchies of fund manager down to facilities manager. It's a new system where every stakeholder is required to participate and will be reliant upon or be required to provide information to report. Taking a step back, this has not been a secret that it's coming, but a lot of companies out there think that they're not going to be touched for many years. It starts with Group 1, who's the big end of town, but our supply chains are complex, and pretty soon, small privates, as I found out in conversation the other day with a regional developer, will be required to provide information if they've got tenants in their mix that require the information, or they're trying to lease or sell to Group 1 tenants. So we might ask ourselves what's involved in preparing. Well, there are a lot of companies who've got capital from the UK or Europe who've been reporting for some time, because in those jurisdictions, reporting's already mandatory. But for local businesses, it requires us to gather greenhouse gas emissions data on the assets we own or those that we manage on behalf of clients. The effect on leasing and selling property is all-pervasive, and we're seeing really great examples of that in the market already. First of all, if you're leasing to Group 1 tenants, you're going to need to provide them with information on your greenhouse gas emissions, Scope 1, 2 and 3, from day one. Tenant expectations are also moving really fast. They've got their own greenhouse gas emissions requirements, they've got their net zero commitments, and many of them need assets that platform them into those. And we saw one great example of that with a client who was involved in a stay-put negotiation with a tenant, and that tenant said, we can talk to you, but we can't do it unless we bake these requirements or these ESG performance criteria into the lease. And that was the first time we'd seen it in Australia, but I understand that we're seeing a lot more of it now. The other thing I'd comment is that reporting is driving demand for more ESG documentation during the sale process. And the way in which we're seeing that is that we've seen this rise of the ESG criteria document attached to the sale process. And it sits alongside but separate from technical due diligence. And it goes straight to the investment committee to make sure that they have what they need in consideration of an asset to purchase. "2024 is going to bring more rapid pace with the introduction of mandatory sustainability reporting. It's bringing a once-in-a-generation change to our industry that requires us to take a transformational shift in the way we do things. It'll affect us all, and far sooner than we think. Our advice is that we start now. It's a complex process and it's involved, and it'll take some time to get our heads around it. And I would say that if you think that you're immune from it, think again, because our supply chains are complex and they're going to scoop you up in one way or another. The other thing I would say is that investor behaviours continue to evolve and become more sophisticated and ambitious. We're not seeing any sign of this letting up in the future years, and what might have been called a trend I think is wrong. These are themes that are going to stay with us for generations. So ESG considerations have become a critical factor for investment decisions.